the wrist. This is good for medium length line, the wrist. The finger joints, and that's going to help you draw some very, very short lines, or even shorter than this. That's mostly finger joints. Yeah. Locking the wrist, locking the finger joints, move your elbow is going to get you longest line. The medium lines to be done with the wrist, the wrist. And you can control the density of your lines to create bright and dark effect. Last but not least, I have the finger joints to do something that's very, very small in scale. The technique to apply different groups of lines in one direction overlapping each other is called hatching. Spell it for you. I'm going to keep doing it in one direction and then slightly changing that direction. Well, I want most of you to at least be able to do hatching to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want to see those, this is bad, I don't want to see this, this is too uncontrolled. It could be good for a certain kind of texture when you're to draw something that's fluffy, but for the task of the rendering is to test your skills, your hand motor skills. You see, I'm adding a different angle to the texture, to smoothen it with your fingers. That's fine. But you will want to keep the texture. Of the lines in a darker area. So I'm using my wrist here because I'm doing medium lines. If it's oblique, these lines never meet up, but if it's one-point perspective, these lines would actually meet up here at the vanishing point. But that's infinitely long, so I've got to chop it off here. And this one is parallel to this one, and that one here is parallel to this one and this one. So this is the same for oblique in the sense that, well, you do have parallel horizontal lines, just like in one perspective, but those lines going to the back, they are different. The vertical ones, they are the same as well. They are all parallel, the vertical ones. But it's just that the lines going to the back, they are different. Yeah, that's the first thing I'd like to address. Do not draw the perspective line to try and link up any corners in oblique projection to the vanishing point. There is no vanishing point in oblique. It's only for one-point perspective. And also, many of you couldn't cut it properly. Remember, you have to cut it properly so it's not infinitely long to infinity. This should be parallel to that. It's kind of like you can see it as a LL or 7/7 if it's glassy. The other thing that I'd like to address, so even though it's glass, it can have 3 tones. Emphasize on the outlines as well is so important, because it's transparent that the outlines of glass are much stronger than other texture in comparison to the shading of the surface. That's for glass. And how do you do wood? Well, to do wood, you you have the rings, but if it's just only for one side, the ring, so the other side would just be straight lines or curvy one, like this. And the key to render realistic wood texture is that you need to add something to make the lines looks more textured. So add some little thingy to it to make it a bit more rough. And also remember that you are to do the three tones. So you are to determine, let's say I'm to determine that you can determine whichever side is the darkest, whichever side is the brightest. And let's say I'm to determine this side to be the brightest, the front to be the brightest, and the top to be the darkest. Then you are to add more lines to it, but also not the perfectly smooth kind of lines, something that's more textured. The rims of it, as you can see, I'm applying texture to the rims of the wood as well. Even though it's a straight line, I'm to apply some texture to the rims of it, so it's more like real wood. Just to make the lines less smooth. As I've mentioned, to determine which side is the brightest, which side is the darkest, so I'll strengthen the contrast of the three tones. So if this side is the brightest, then the other side should be medium. The side on the left should be medium then. So I'm just to finish the front, and I'm to do the side to make it medium. It happens a lot that when you to make it medium, it turns out the dark one is not dark enough, which is why I'm just going to make it even darker right now. And that's how you to render wood texture, That's more about it. What else I have to talk about? I also noticed that many of you, when you to apply the square paper texture to the cuboid, you forgot that even the lines on the texture is to follow the 45 degrees. So if this is 45, this line here should also be 45. The move it technique, move it all the way up here as well. So all the lines that are done here, they are all 45, all of them.